All right. It is October 15th, my time 7:15. Our guest today, David Abidor. David, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Like we said, prior to the start of the recording of this episode, you're about our third or fourth guest. Obviously, we appreciate your time. Without further ado, we'll get right into it. Obviously, want to know more about yourself, want to know more about your career. All three of us have shared experiences that we can kind of piggyback off of when it comes to the conversation, but we would just like to know more about yourself, man.
Yeah, so I had a pretty wild ride throughout my career. So I finished my senior year playing at Creighton, and I got picked up by Real Salt Lake undrafted, and I kind of hit a limbo where I was in camp with RSL, and they were kind of unsure, and I had to make a decision about school, whether I'd come back for the spring, and ultimately made a decision not to come back. And that was kind of my first taste of the professional soccer world, where I got cut maybe a week after I withdrew from school. So that kind of left me kind of looking for another path in playing, and wasn't really sure why that had happened, but a lot of things in the soccer world don't really have an explanation, and you kind of just have to take it and move on from that. But luckily I had an opportunity to go to Sweden, Division 1, play for a club called Dalkurd. Very fascinating club. So it was a Kurdish run club based out of Borlänge, Sweden. And we had in that team, if I'm not mistaken, it was 10 different cultures, religions, combination of that. So it's if anybody knows anything about Sweden, there's a lot of different cultures and a lot of just a giant melting pot. So that was really cool. So when I got to Sweden, started playing with Dalkurd. It was a really interesting club. Came in kind of late for preseason, so I didn't crack into the 18, and that was another obstacle that I had to face, both mentally and finding ways to physically prepare myself for the professional game. I think in 4 months or so, I made maybe 2 or 3 appearances, and I've always been the kind of guy that I understand that I need to play games. Otherwise, I kind of dig myself into a rut. So, and also, moving abroad to Sweden without my family, without my friends, everyone, I kind of had that senioritis going on. Everyone was having a good time, enjoying their last semester of college. Meanwhile, I was sitting, had my own little apartment in the woods, watching Netflix, eating my kebab pizzas after games, like just trying to grind it out.
Can I stop you real quick? Because I'd love for you to expand on that. And it was a conversation I think Alex and I have had in the past. The concept, especially now in 2020, where everybody's going abroad, it seems like earlier and earlier, right? And coming from a university, right, betting on yourself with Salt Lake, and it not working out, with Salt Lake, it pretty quickly, right? What was a day-to-day like, right? Because you said you played 4 games in a span of 3 or 4 months?
4 months, yeah.
Right. So everybody sees the Gio Reyna, right? Pulisic, you name it, right? The top of like the Prem player, right? Or Bundesliga player, right? So big time contract. Talk about the reality of being that far away from home, that far away from your peers who are enjoying their senior year of college, wondering. I can identify with you because I spent time in Belgium as well, abroad as well, I should say, in Belgium for a number of years. We probably went through the same questions, if you will. So I'd love to hear more about that.
I lucked out, soccer being a world renowned sport. Everybody loves it, right? A girl I went to high school with, she plays professionally in Sweden. She's a national team star, like very good player. She actually lived about 10 minutes away from me with her family. So I was lucky that um, I think that had it not been for her family kind of bringing me in, you know, I think I would have struggled a lot more. So it gave me an escape whenever we didn't have training after games on the weekend, and I could just go and talk about something other than soccer. And I'm crazy about soccer. I can watch games. I'll talk about it all day, and I quickly learned that it's important to love the game, but there's got to be a time where you step away and you kind of turn off that switch and not think about it.
Mm-hmm.
It was also kind of difficult in Europe. There's this, I don't know if it was similar to the clubs you were with in Belgium, but this club I was with at Dalker, we had a lot of guys that were under 20, and then we had a lot of guys that were 26 with like families. So I kind of fell into that middle category, and I didn't exactly mesh with all the younger guys because I didn't really understand their mentalities, and the older guys, they had families too. So I think that was another aspect of professional soccer that it kind of made me grow up, not only as a player but as a person. And that year, it may have felt like a lost year at the time, and I wasn't playing a lot, but in hindsight, now that I look back at it, I think that year has kind of made my career what it is today.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, it's being away from family, friends, loved ones. I'm sure you missed birthdays, holidays, right?
Sure.
And I at a young age, I think you made a crucial decision to kind of find some sort of balance.
Yeah.
Right. Where of course we're all passionate individuals about the sport that we love, but it's a portion of who we are as people, right? And with how the peaks and the valleys that this game does bring you, if you live by the adulation and the cheers, right, you're gonna die by the criticism, right? And you can't have this to this to this to this week in and week out. You're just not going to be yourself, and it's not healthy. So I think that's a crucial point that I hope people can pick up, is like, look, we're all professionals, but even we strive for balance.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, definitely. I think like too with just those peaks and valleys. I mean, that's just a roller coaster of emotions that it's so hard to handle. I think David, you being thrust into being somewhere new and having guys around you that are in different parts of their lives, like that kind of makes you figure out where you're at and what you're doing pretty quick. But I mean, the fact that you had like a sliver, and well, it seemed like more than a sliver of familiarity with your friend from high school, I think that goes such a long way. And I mean, you obviously seem to recognize that as well. Like it's what something that people don't realize, and with moving around, going different places, like that's what our life becomes. And especially for those of us that have gone to college and played, we're somewhere for 4 years. We had this dream of playing professionally, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, I'm living out of my car and living out of a suitcase for the next handful of years. And it's a different lifestyle.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so kind of like touching with all that. So I was playing with third tier in Sweden is considered professional, and I wasn't getting the games that I wanted, and at the time there were no opportunities for me to come back to the US. So I was able to find a club. You also kind of the people I dealt with when I was in Sweden, they kind of in a way finessed me. I had no guidance and how to contract talk. So sporting director came up to me one day, and being a foreigner, if you're not performing in Europe as a foreigner, they're gonna find a way to weed you out. And I'm a pretty nice guy off the field, and sporting director kind of sat down with a cup of coffee and was like, hey, look, like you don't fit our team. Like, we're going to let you go. Like, are you okay with that? And I was like, yeah, for sure. But I didn't realize, there's a contract on the table. Like I didn't get the money. I didn't get paid out or anything, but I just, I really wanted to go play. Um, but without that guidance, looking back at it, that's something that I want to do for younger players that are, that didn't go to these top schools, that, there's ways to maneuver around it. And there are a lot of snakes in this industry, and unfortunately, and you can't really get hampered by that because there's people like that all over the place. So that was kind of my first experience with that, and signed with a eighth division team in Sweden. So I lived on I'll paint this picture for you guys. I lived with 5 other Americans in a cabin. So it was just our cabin, and our cabin was kind of connected to the owner's daughter's cabin. We had a cow stable right outside our apartment, our cabin. There was one hamburger spot in town, and then we had to drive 15 minutes to go to a grocery store. And the hamburger spot was the only restaurant in town. There was nothing. It was just straight woods. So that, my first game there, I'll never forget. I walked out of the locker room after the game, and the level was poor. Like, it was men's league in Chicago makes this look amazing. And I walked out and I just saw a player on the other team smoking a cigarette, and I was like, where am I? I was training with Real Salt Lake about 8 months ago, and now I'm seeing this. So that was a pretty short stint. That was like a 3-month like little deal because I didn't want to head home and kind of wanted to make the best of that experience. But wow, what a 3 months that I had with that team. Well, the team was called Stockery Dwarvik.
So that tells me that the idea, it's not just the idea of professional football that you love. You are willing to go through something like that and stick with it, right? So truly passionate about that, because I'm sure we've all come across those teammates that they like the idea of being a professional footballer, but when the rubber meets the road and the hard work starts, and the winding road that is, then they're like, a little apprehensive, not for me.
Yeah. I mean, sitting here right now, if you asked me to do that again, I wouldn't say no in a heartbeat. But, we train only 3 times a week, and I really had to find ways to motivate myself to train every single day because I knew that the USL season was right around the corner. And I prepared myself as best I could, and luckily I met this goalkeeper Alex Mangles over here, the Ninja. So yeah, I was able to sign after a pretty poor year by my standards. Was able to sign to the USL after that.
Okay.
With the Roughnecks. Yeah, so I was excited. When you come back to the US, obviously aside from like the Premier League, La Liga, Serie A, America from top to bottom does an amazing job of, covering the media and, just the overall team. Even if the team is not good, like you feel like, kind of something to boast about. So it was kind of a transition because when I was in Sweden, the club that I was with originally, Dalkurd, we hadn't lost a game at all that year. So the team had gotten promoted. I got to Tulsa, and it was the complete opposite. Like we couldn't buy a win, and
we won what, like 2 games that year?
Yeah. It was a rough year, but you kind of, there's lessons to be learned from every experience, and we had a couple. Alex we still keep in touch now, and there's a couple other guys that I still keep in contact with from that team, but we kind of found a way to help one another mentally get through through that whole year, just because it's not fun losing every single game and it being kind of out of our hands. Yeah, what a year that was. I mean, we lost to you guys maybe 4 times every single time we played.
I think, and not to rub salt in the wound, but I think that's actually what got us into playoffs. Picking up those
Probably,
points.
honestly.
Yeah, picking up those points.
If we had to play you guys one more time and I had to see you guys lift the wrench, I probably would have. I don't know what I would have myself for a 5th time. Just
Oh man,
what a year that was.
Was Kobe Smith your trainer?
He was our trainer.
Yeah.
I love Kobe.
What a lad.
He was with us here at OKC.
I forgot that he had moved down there.
Really?
Last season. What a guy. What a guy.
Oh,
like he would get so much in the way of, friendly ribbing or, joking around. And he was he was so great to be around. And he also, an under appreciated quality of his was he was able to back the player. And what I mean by that is if a player was hurt, if he was, not 100%, there was no pressure put on that player. It's Kobe was firm and he knew his stuff, and that was greatly appreciated.
Yeah,
I think that's such a huge quality of his because he did the same thing with us. I mean,
yeah,
our coach definitely wanted to play guys that were hurt, and he stepped in. But at the end of the day, too, one thing that I learned out of that year, like you take a person like Kobe, and he kind of holds the group together.
Yes.
Yeah, we were pissed off. We were losing every game. We were down, and it was hard coming in every day. But we could tell he was frustrated too. But I mean, he's always there picking us back up. I mean, we're on 12-hour bus rides, and he's dealing out the blackjack and got a stack of dollar bills so we can bet all of our per diem on the way down.
What a guy, man.
RGV. That was more than 12. It was like a 16-hour bus ride.
You guys busted from Tulsa to RGV?
Oh, yeah.
It was brutal.
Good Lord.
Funny story about injuries and Kobe. So Alex was battling a little quad injury, and we didn't have another goalie. So Alex had just signed a West Coast deal, and I stepped up to the plate, and we had another goalie at the time, Jake Feener. So I was made the third string goalie. So I was a backup for a game. I remember I did a goalie session. I did breakaway.
With what, Ryan Ego was our keeper coach.
Yeah. The form was subpar, but
So to this day, are you still West Coast goalkeeping?
Yeah. I still got the gloves at home, so you guys know any league teams that need a goalkeeper? Give me a call.
I love it. That's funny, man. That's great. If you don't mind, I'd like to take a step back because we didn't properly get into like you growing up, and you mentioned that you grew up in Chicago, born and raised.
Born and raised, yeah.
Talk to us about that. Obviously, it's a cultural melting pot. I'm interested.
Yeah, so my parents moved here in '91 after the Soviet Union collapsed, and my family's originally from Ukraine, but the Russian part of it near Odessa, and they came here in '91 kind of in pursuit of a better life, and my aunt had moved here first, and they kind of followed suit, but they kind of came here like all immigrants with nothing but with a vision to do better than their parents did for them. So growing up, my family really didn't know what the right decisions were soccer wise. So I kind of played club soccer growing up, and I bounced around a couple of the local clubs in Chicago with Chicago Wind, and then played academy with Chicago Magic, played with the Chicago Sockers. A lot of guys have come out of Sockers. Mike McGee, Michael Bradley. So, a good pedigree of players. But when I was 16 going into my junior year, I had an opportunity to attend Shattuck St. Mary's. And, I'd always wanted to fully immerse myself in the soccer world, and that was my opportunity, and I took it, and that was I take it back. That was kind of the first step where I knew that I'm fully committing full throttle to become a pro, and I'm going to do whatever it takes.
At what age?
So I was 16 when I moved away from home.
You're intentional.
Yeah.
Intentional.
So yeah, I mean, obviously I wanted to go to school just because, you know, first generation graduate from college. But, you know, the bigger picture was that, look, like, this is a sacrifice I have to make today. And it'll pay dividends one day, whether, you know, whether it's in 5 years, 10 years, and, you know, it has. And in order to become a professional soccer player, it doesn't mean you have to be playing for Barcelona or Manchester United. You know, like, to fulfill your dream of playing professionally, it's, you know, it could be at any level. And, you know, I could say I did that. You know, for my family, I've also an only child, so you know, my parents are definitely proud of that, because, again, their dream to come to the U.S. and give me a better life, it's happened for them. So, you know, that's kind of for their self-fulfillment. I mean, we talk about it to this day. So with COVID and, you know, the uncertainty of soccer moving forward, they continue to support me if I decide to play or not play. So so that's kind of the gist of my background growing up playing.
Love that. Yeah. And another great point that you mentioned, 5 to 10 years, right? No immediate gratification. It's a process, man. It's a process.
For sure. But yeah, I mean, again, it gave me a scholarship to go to college. I originally attended University of Dayton, and then I transferred to Creighton for my last year.
Dayton Flyers?
Dayton Flyers.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I did 2.5 years there, and then a year at Creighton, and then I withdrew, obviously, and I just graduated this last May. So what? It took
Nice.
6 years to finish, but
hey, man, you got it done.
I got it done.
I was looking through your Wikipedia. It said that you attended IMG Academy.
So I didn't. I just played PDL there.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, that was a good summer.
Okay.
PDL was always fun.
Okay.
It was good to get away and,
of course,
you know, meet people from all over the place.
Yeah, and plus those facilities aren't bad either.
Oh my God.
I know.
Class. I think since I left, they built like 20 extra fields in the back.
We've gone there preseason multiple times, and every preseason you show up, it's an extra layer of land that they've developed.
Yeah.
Whether it be for football, baseball, you know, a new golf course, you know, soccer, you name it. It's incredible down there.
So after my year in Tulsa, team wise, it wasn't the best year, but I feel like I did well for myself personally. Played most of the year, played almost 30 games, and I had a little connection with the New York Red Bulls too, and was able to get in on trial with them. Went into preseason with them, and I mean, did well. You know, part of the battle about being a pro that I started to figure out was, it's not always about how good you are as a player, but it's how you connect with the group. And, you know, this was after 2 years of playing, 1 year abroad, 1 year in the US, and I was able to figure that part out. And that was a really cool year. I think that year, soccer wise, was the best for me. Just, you know, you really get to see how a professional club is run full throttle, from the first team to the second team to the youth players that would come up to train with us for the first team. You know, they truly do a good job of integrating everybody within the club, so everybody feels, you know, valued to an extent. So I battled some injuries that year. By mid-season, I was training quite a bit with the first team at the beginning of the season, and I don't know. I've always been a guy who, if I'm out with a bad injury, I won't play. But if it's a nagging little injury, I'll try and play through it. After the season, I came to find out that I had torn my plantar fascia, and that wasn't diagnosed. So that was, you know, that kind of hurt. Obviously, wasn't playing 100% at the time, so wasn't considered for you know, to come back with the second team or the first team. Plus, there were some big shoes to fill. Aaron Wong had just been promoted, and I had been brought in, along with a few other center backs, and those aren't easy shoes to fill. Tyler Adams was on the team; he got promoted to the first team. Um, so yeah, you know, a club like that's very hard to play for, especially with the second team, because uh, you really don't know where you stand. They're constantly rotating players, and you can have the best game of your life, but the next game they'll put somebody else in, and I kind of battled uh, that aspect of the game just because I knew why I would come off the field, but at the same time, you know, you have a drive to continue playing no matter how you're doing. So
Yeah, that's a difficult one. That's a great point that you brought up about when you play for a two team here in the US. It sometimes I went through it with Galaxy 2. I could have had a great game, could have had shutout, what you name it, whatever. But that next week, if a first team guy needed minutes,
yeah,
it was, look, you're back, you're on the bench, that type of thing.
yeah,
It's tough. It's tough. Yeah, it's definitely tough.
and you also start to realize, at that time I was 24, which seems young, but that's when it kind of starts to you kind of start to get a perspective that 24 isn't young, and there are 15 to 18-year-olds that are probably going to get a chance over you just because they haven't come close to hitting full potential.
And they've got time on their side too. Like
right.
Same thing as you two. I've been through the situation being at an MLS2 team, and you kind of battle this. The two sides of it are, on one hand, you're in an MLS organization, you've got the facilities, you've got, everything that's provided for you, the training, just the guys that you can feed off of and learn from, which is invaluable. But then you're put in a position where, you don't know week in, week out what's going to happen because you're at the mercy of the first team. And then, like you said, if academy guys are coming through, then they'll want to give them some shots. And especially like before they go to college, or if they want to decide if they want to sign them homegrown or something. But it's just, you're almost stuck between a rock and a hard place where it's an amazing experience, but also it can be very difficult to have consistent minutes or just to maintain a level of consistency.
How did you find ways to cope with that when you were in Portland? I mean, did you feel like you were doing well enough where they would sometimes pick you over some of the guys who would come down, or how did that?
I never got picked over a first team player. Like I knew that they were always going to take precedence. Also, we had the reason I ended up playing a lot of games that year was because the first team goalkeeping core kind of had a merry-go-round of injuries. It's always seemed like one of them was hurt at some point. So I ended up playing probably half the games that year. But then, I'd go on a run of 4 or 5 games and I'd do quite well. And then one of the first team keepers would get fit again. And I, all of a sudden Wednesday comes around and, keeper coach comes up and, hey, Kendall's coming down this weekend, or, Jeff's coming down this weekend. And it definitely wore on me. And I think that was probably the year I played the most soccer, just from a standpoint of like not a lot of days off. But that's kind of where I learned to value the time that I had in the day away from the game. I picked up a new hobby that year. One of my teammates is a big fly fisherman. So I went fishing with him a bunch, and just kind of used the time to just get away from what made me think about soccer. And it helped, but also I was tired all year. Oh yeah, I don't think I ever recovered from preseason, honestly. It was brutal.
How's the
Now,
fly fishing in Chattanooga?
Huh?
How's the fly fishing in Chattanooga?
It's all right. The Smoky Mountains are not too far, so and like Western North Carolina, there's actually quite a good bit of fly fishing. So I've gone out there a few times, gone into like North Georgia. Um, in Chattanooga itself, you can fish for bass, but which is always fun. But there's
You're a
not a huge fly
big
fishing.
fisherman,
Huh?
big bass guy.
Oh yeah. Oh, they're so much fun. Once they hit, they fight so hard, and they'll eat anything.
Now this is good because it's all three of us, we individuals that are searching for some sort of balance and some sort of outlet because of the pressures, the day-to-day pressures. David, like that season had to be unique because what we've seen, it's becoming more prevalent or more, how should I say this, more, it's becoming more normalized for upwards mobility from a second to a first team. But that year, obviously Aaron Long, he's one of the, I'd say, the success story from an MLS affiliate, because I remember playing against him in Seattle, and now where his career has taken him. But with Tyler Adams as well, making his way to the first team. What was that like on a day-to-day, seeing people that you share a locker room with? Was it inspiring? Was it nerve-wracking? What was the feel of you personally when you see things like that?
Yeah, I mean, just for me, like, it was really cool interacting with Aaron. First of all, I respect him on so many levels as a player, and it's amazing to see how far he's come. But he's just like one of us. He could be in this conversation, and you wouldn't know that he's this. He had captained the U.S. men's national team. So for me, that was really cool to see that. The guy he's humbled from all the experiences, but he understands that he's done well for himself, and you got to give credit where it's due. And with Tyler, I mean, that guy's a machine. I mean, you had to like pry the guy off the field. Like, guys would stay after training and do work with the coaches, extra work, and then the coaches would leave the field and he would still train. So, and
Wow.
at the time he was, I think he might have been 18 at the time. Like, you can't teach somebody that kind of work ethic. So, I mean, it shows. I mean, that's why he's playing where he's playing. That's why Aaron's playing at the level he's playing. Hard work. It pays its dividends at the end of the day, and
There's no secrets.
there are no secrets.
There's no secrets to it.
No secrets. I mean,
yeah.
So, but I mean, I'm a huge Red Bull supporter just because I played there, and every time I can watch. I mean, Aaron's someone that I like to watch play just because you can always get some kind of learn a thing or two from him. But yeah, it was a cool experience.
Beautiful. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your time in Israel.
Yeah. Wow. So I went to Israel. So after my year in New York, I decided that I was ready for. I thought I'd matured enough, and I was ready for Europe Part 2. Went to Sweden originally. Lived in a hotel, bounced around a bunch of clubs, dealt with some shady people, got a contract offer. I could just see things going kind of south from there. Ended up settling in Finland, and Finland was, I finally felt like I'd found a home in Finland. Good place, but I'm Jewish, and I had always wanted to go to Israel. And actually, at the end of my year, when I was with the Red Bulls, the sporting director had granted me an opportunity to go try out with the club in Israel. And things didn't work out. I wasn't able to get the paperwork in time to get my citizenship, so that didn't work out at the time. But I'd done well enough for myself where people knew my name. So after my year in Finland, so the season ended in October, I had an agent messaged me about an opportunity in Israel, and I said, look, I have family there. close ties, and let's try it out. So ended up signing with a team that historically is the most winningest club in Israel, but they won the most titles in the top flight. But they ran into some financial problems the last couple of years. So they had fallen out of the top flight. They're in the second tier, newly bankrupt. Of course, I end up with this club.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, honestly, one of the best experiences I ever had. Great people at the club. It's interesting because so when I was there, you were only allowed 2 foreigners, and I didn't count as a foreigner. So, when you walk into a foreign locker room, you already cut out half the players because they don't speak English. So like half of them, you can't even converse with them really. And then you got to find in the other half the guys that you'll get along with, and you'll be able to find something to talk about. So I was able to find a good group of guys in that locker room, and I came in, we were in last place, and they had also brought in a couple guys with me in the January transfer window, and we ended up finishing 9th place that year. But the club had started minus 13 points with the financial problems. But it was awesome, man. I mean, we had great fans. The facilities were great. It was a proper professional environment. But Israel is a country that you kind of learn quickly that people, let me put it in a nice way, results matter. And
hey, no, speak freely. Speak freely. Just give it to us.
Yeah,
give it to us, man.
They really don't care. I mean, if you have you can play great for a full year, but if you have 1 week that's bad, they'll let you go, and they don't care about paying you out. They don't care about the money. It doesn't matter. It's all about winning for them. So had a great year, great 6 months. I signed a 6-month deal plus an option. Option got picked up. So I was back in preseason. Our coach had done well with us. He didn't have a very big budget. So, in Europe, if you do well, you move up. So he got a job in the top flight. Brought in a new coach, and the coach had liked what he saw from the year before. I came in for preseason, and I didn't pass the eye test for him. So in preseason, immediately I was on the chopping block. So I was out, and so this club that I was playing at was called Apoel Petach Tikva. So that's a Jewish club. So we negotiated, my agent and I, we were able to negotiate a buyout for me, and I was able to find a new club in Israel. But the club I'd went to is an Arab-run club. That's a whole different ball game.
Wow.
Different culture, different mentality. I mean, even different language, to be honest with you.
Probably a whole different set of rules too.
Yeah, whole different set, exactly. And I thought the Jewish guys were crazy. These guys were on another level. There's a lot of shady stuff there's shady stuff that goes on at every club, but there were some games that I would say, there was a chance that we might have been match fixing. I might go on and say that, because we would be down 5 goals in the first 30 minutes. And these goals were, you see these guys train every day, and some of the guys getting beat or the goalie making mistakes, you kind of would question what's going on. And Israel is known for that, so it's not like it's uncommon. So,
David, you missed your opportunity. You were the 3rd choice at Tulsa.
I know.
West Coast.
I know.
Goalkeeping. Alex, come on, man.
I know. I was waiting for the deal. But,
become the next Israeli goalkeeper.
Josh Cohen has done amazing out there.
Yes.
Oh, he's crushing it out there, man.
Yeah, Josh has done well, and I know that it's crazy. They brought in the guy from Charleston,
Kuzminski.
to back him up. Where in Europe do you find 2 American goalies that are 1 and 2? So
yeah.
So if you guys know any Israeli or any Jewish goalkeepers, do you guys have any lineage? Let me know.
I think that I'm far from that, but I can do some digging.
Yeah. I think Josh is a great story too, because the headline, I think the Athletic put out a story 2 weeks ago when they were set to play against Spurs.
Yeah.
And it basically, it prefaced the article with 2 years ago, Josh Cohen making $750 a month.
Yeah.
Tomorrow he's set to play in the Champions League against Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah, that's
So.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, it's a small country, so I got to know most of the Americans over there, but I never got a chance to meet him. But I heard he's, unbelievable guy, and
he's extremely nice. He's extremely nice.
I heard he's even
great dude.
I heard he's a very smart guy as well. He's
yes,
an electrical engineer or mechanical engineer.
Yes,
something crazy.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, so that year was probably the toughest for me. So I'd signed with this club. It was called Benny Lud, and in 12 games we won 2 games. We lost 10. We went through 4 coaches. And like I was telling you guys, everything's pretty cutthroat there. So after the 4th coach came in, at a certain point, he's going to want to bring his own guys in. So I got pushed out. So because I had been signed for 2 clubs already in 1 calendar year, I had to make sure that the 3rd club I signed for, it was going to be the right club for me, because you can only switch 3 times in 1 calendar year. So I sat in Israel. I sat in Israel in my apartment for about 3.5 months, just kind of playing the waiting game for January. And luckily my family was there, so it was great. And I had the income coming in from the clubs, but that kind of gave me perspective that, money's not everything, that I truly enjoyed playing the game. It wasn't about the money. And, I made a lot of good friends out there. Everybody would have games, training during the week. And then I'd be working out. I'd be going on runs by myself, trying to hop into pickup games wherever I could. And, in a foreign country, it definitely takes a toll on you. And I think that was kind of the phase of my life where I started to question whether or not soccer is, if I should continue playing, or if, there's kind of something else, a new challenge ahead of me. But, January rolled around, and I got an opportunity with the Oakland Roots in Nisa, and didn't really know much about Nisa or Oakland Roots. I, just Googled it, and I was kind of sold on, the club mission and their values. And, there were some talks about potentially moving up, but, nothing, you can't really believe anything until it actually comes to fruition. So yeah, and then now we're kind of here. It was crazy year, pandemic year. So that was this year. I mean, for you guys too, I'm sure you guys have your interesting stories during lockdown, how you were training. So,
it threw a wrench into everything, honestly.
Yeah.
Everyone had to get creative.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to find out a little bit more of from you. I mean, so you had these 3 months where you were just kind of waiting, biding your time to figure out what the right move for you was. Had you learned kind of how to motivate yourself and be able to keep yourself going day to day from that period when you were in Sweden and only training 3 days a week? Do you feel like there were things you were able to take from that when you said that was probably one of the most difficult points of finding something within you to motivate yourself?
Yeah, honestly, I think there have been so many ups and downs in my career that I've kind of learned to have blind faith with just about everything that happens in my career. Even now, with the season ending, like I don't know what's going to happen moving forward, but I know it's kind of cliche to say, but everything kind of happens for a reason. And, if you continue doing the right things that you've done in the past, and which everybody has their own right things. So the things that I've done, it kind of always worked out for me. So, to sit here and say that it was easy to wake up and to go train, it was very difficult. But you know.
I mean, I've been in the same boat in the off season, out of contract.
Yeah.
You know, stressed out from trying to find the club, and then, you know, you have the moments where you get a little bit of news, and it's easy to get out there and train and put the 2 workouts in a day, whatever. But then, you know, when you have that uncertainty and you feel like nothing's going to bite, then, you know, you're getting out of bed and you're like, well, why am I doing this?
It's kind of crazy to think that, you know, you train all this time, and I feel like every single day you're like, when's the call coming? When's the call coming? And then you get the call and you're like, you feel relieved, but then you're like, you know, why was I stressing out so much for the last 2, 3, 4 months about it? Like, you know, it was things kind of always find a way of working themselves out. So that's one thing that I've kind of realized about myself, that um, there's no point to stress out. Just do your thing, you know, for me personally.
I love that. You're kind of along the same vein, obviously, with the amount of uncertainty throughout, you know, not just your career, but a good amount of players that most likely will listen to this. Do you ever lose enthusiasm at any point? Did you ever kind of second guess at any stage, like, you know, what am I doing? Obviously, I know you just, you know, you're a proactive individual, as I think everybody in the USL kind of has to be. But I want to know, like, throughout this entire journey, was there a long stretch of time where you're just like, man, you know, what am I doing?
Yeah, I think that moment in Israel was the first time where I kind of hit that point. Whenever I'm back in Chicago, we always have a really good group of guys to train with, and there's nothing better in this world than playing small sided with, you know, with good players and enjoying yourself and being able to laugh and not having any pressure on you. But when I was in Israel, it wasn't the same. I didn't really have that access, and um, that was the first time that I, you know, started to question that, you know, what's kind of the next move. What, you know, not to say that I was ready to retire, but kind of starting to formulate a 5-10 year plan, which I hadn't really done prior to that. So I'm pretty excited. I'm starting my C course, my coaching licenses. So that's, you know, if soccer's not going to be the end all be all for me moving forward, I'll be okay with it, because I'll still stay connected to the game.
Are you doing the one through the winter that meets in Tampa in January?
Yeah, so I'm doing the one November through February in Portland.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, yeah.
That's exciting to hear that, and I think a lot of our peers are kind of going down a similar avenue with getting their coaching license.
Yeah.
And that excites me for the next generation of player, because I think as soccer gains popularity in the U.S., obviously we are a melting pot of culture and of ethnicities, and, like you said earlier in the podcast, religions, you name it, right? We're going to be able to kind of utilize all of our collective experience, be able to, like, lead with a level of empathy that maybe when we went through it, growing up, maybe the coaches, maybe they didn't have the experiences of, you know, Sweden, you know, to Israel, to the US, you know, and understanding that you can thrive in uncertainty, and being able to empathize with players that go through it, I think is a fantastic way to kind of pay it forward after your playing days are over, which I hope continue on for another 5 to 10 years, bro.
For sure.
Of course.
For sure. Yeah, no, I just think that, you know, for this young generation coming up, there's only one Christian Pulisic, there's only one Weston McKennie, and sometimes kids will get lost in this idea where if they don't make it to these top clubs that they're not good enough, but that's just not the case. You know, everyone can pave a career for themselves in their own little way, and you know, it's okay not to hit that point.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, most football around the world is considered lower league football.
For sure.
Right. And and that's important. That's an important insight from people that are going through it, to be like, look, what do you consider a failure is an achievement that anybody should be proud of. I mean, in a nation of what, 330 million people, if we're being, I don't know, conservative, we're one of, I don't know, a couple thousand people that get to say we're professional footballers and we get paid to play a sport. Talk about it. Talk about achievement. That in itself is incredible.
And I would even go, money aside, look at both you guys. You've met people from all over the world, from all face of life, and you know, you're cultured because of that. You understand different cultures. You can speak with other people and be able to understand kind of where they're coming from. Maybe not, exactly, but you can empathize with people. So for me, that's something I started to realize in the last couple of years, that that experience in its own is, that's identity capital right there. That's
100%.
You can put that forth in anything you do, and yeah.
Yeah, I know it's cliche when they say football is the world sport, but it is a unifier.
Yeah.
And you find out through those experiences, through sharing a locker room, right? And I know you said it before about you walk into a new spot, cut the locker room in half in terms of being able to verbally communicate, but you get to know those people, you get to know, and you find out, hey, we're more alike than we are, different.
For sure.
Different cultures have their own things, right? But for the most part, man, we are much more similar than we're different.
For sure. For sure.
I'll be honest with you, man. This has been an excellent episode. Alex, you have anything else? Oh, Alex must have. He just dipped out. I think he might have been frozen. Dave, do you want to leave the listeners with anything?
One thing that I kind of want to say before I go is, look, I think in all facets of life, it's all about adaptability, and whether it's soccer, whether it's on any other career path, whether it's finding friends, anything, the faster you can adapt, the quicker you can become comfortable and and fulfill your potential. So it's taken me a while to realize that, but that's I try to tell everybody that, and for me, that's been kind of the most important part of my career, especially as of the last couple of years. So if I can have one listener, one young player just hear me out on that, that's I feel like I touched somebody's life.
I love that, man. I love that. Alex, we were just finishing up and your internet cut out.
I know. It said my computer restarted for some reason, so I had to reboot it.
Oh, it's all good. Well, David, I can't thank you enough, man.
I appreciate you guys having me on the podcast.
Yeah, of course.
And we appreciate you being willing to, share your life and career experiences. I mean, It's just at this point, like, there's so much that all of us have been through, and I think the more that we can share with each other, the more beneficial it's going to be for future generations of players and even players that are in it right now that are uncertain and maybe are in situations that we've been in before.
Yeah. Like, I'm not sure, Alex, if you were on just yet, but David said, he's like, look, if we can just help one person, through these experiences, then it's worth it. So
absolutely. I mean, and hopefully we have a reach that's greater than that, but
of course,
I think if you bring
you guys for sure will. Look at you guys. You guys are.
Hey, I'm knocking on wood right now.
We'll see. We're flying by the seat of our pants here.
Yep, exactly. Still early days here.
Exactly. We'll get there hopefully, but shit, you're right. If we can just get one guy, the help they need, that's what we're going for
sure.
Awesome, guys. All right, I'm gonna pause this recording again. Thank you again, and be on the lookout for this episode. Appreciate it,
Great.
guys.